Let's get started. Hi again. We are here in the career services focused part of our webinar program today. And I'm really excited to chat with you guys about how to be a no-brainer tech hire. Here's another title slide. We're going to blow right through this one. I'll introduce myself just a little bit before we kind of officially jump in. I'm Rebekah Rombom. I lead the career services team at Flatiron School, and I've been doing that since 2013. I've had the great privilege of being here to watch or participate in and oversee around 1,000 of our graduate job searches. And over the years, and all of those job searches, lots of rejections and acceptances and a lot of excitement and a lot of anxiety and struggle, we figured out what makes a great hire. We figure out what makes a great job seeker. And we built a set of recommendations and actually a whole team to support our job seekers around those lessons and those ideas. We're here to talk about some of that today. But before we get started, I'll tell you the story of my first job search to kind of set the stage for some of the themes that have become so important to the work here we do at Flatiron School, the work of the career services team, and the way we think about approaching a job search when we're working with our grads. So when I went to college, I majored in English. I was sure I was going to be a writer. I was so excited to be a writer. I was editor of my college newspaper. I tried to put all the pieces in place. I checked internship boards every day for the 6 months before I graduated just to be ready to apply for jobs. And I was finally nearing graduation, and so I geared up and I applied for a ton of jobs online, and I wrote great cover letters, and I got no responses, none at all. And that was super discouraging, but I was resolved to be a writer. So I thought, I really need to build up my portfolio to make myself stand out. I kind of went in my head through the things that could be going wrong or the reasons I might not be standing out. And I sourced myself a bunch of freelance writing gigs. One was with my college's career services office, as it happened. And one was a freelance writing job, earning, I think, around $20 per blog post, reviewing like makeup and clothes and stuff like that. And so I did that all spring, in addition to taking a full course load, having no job ready for me upon graduation. And in June, the woman who ran that company that I was blogging for made me a full-time job offer. And that was how I got my first job. Not by applying, not by just being a good writer, but by really hustling, first failing a lot, and then really hustling my way into some relevant work that built my portfolio and demonstrated my skills. And actually that employer then was kind of happy to pay a bunch more to have me come on full-time and have full mind share, given that I had already proven myself for basically pennies. Those ideas will kind of continue to emerge throughout the webinar, but suffice it to say that was a lesson that would prove to come back again and again, especially throughout the time I've spent here at Flatiron School and with all of our grads. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about how we've codified those lessons into a list of best practices about how to be a great job seeker. Okay, so what we'll talk about today is a little bit about our outcomes. We'll talk about what is a no-brainer hire, what do we mean when we say that. We'll use those ideas to talk about getting the most out of your interview when you get an interview. And then we'll get some examples of graduates who got creative and employed these tactics to get into their first job. So away we go. So a little bit on Flatiron School's outcomes. Since 2012, since we were founded, we have kind of led the industry on defining an outcome, transparent reporting an outcome, and holding ourselves accountable for outcomes that are in line with what our graduates are aiming to do. We publish a report every year on our graduates' success rates in finding jobs. And historically, as of the last report, 98.5% of our grads who were job seeking were employed within around 180 days. And in our most recent report of our online grads, our first audit of online grads, every single graduate who was employed had accepted a software engineering role. We take this stuff really, really seriously, and it's part of the reason that we've devoted so much time and energy to helping students think about how to be a great job seeker and a great hire. So jumping into this no-brainer hire concept. What do we mean when we say a no-brainer hire? I think one really important thing to think about is that no matter what, you're going to find there's a lot of competition for jobs. Regardless of the field that you're searching in or the city or the level of experience that you have, finding a job is competitive. You're never going to be the only person who could do the thing that you do. So what you need to do is figure out a way to elevate your application above and beyond all of the other noise and make it so clear to an employer that you are the person that they should be in the first stage bringing in for an interview, and the second stage moving on to the tech evaluation, and the third stage making an offer, and on until you've accepted a job. I think a good way to think about how to do that and kind of start breaking down that problem is to think about what it is that an employer is trying to figure out when they engage you in an interview process in the first place. It's really just three things. For all intents and purposes, we can think of these as the only three things that employers are trying to understand when they interview you. And that is, one, can you do the job? Do you have the skills that are needed to come in and be productive and add value to this set of responsibilities that need to get done, right? Are you going to fill this headcount and provide the expected level of productivity and value to the team? Two, they're trying to understand if you can add value to the team in kind of a broader sense. Are you going to be someone who pushes your teammates to think more innovatively about problem solving? Are you going to be someone who diffuses conflict? Are you going to go out into the market and talk to customers? Are you going to just be a generally positive presence and fun to be around? Are people going to like working with you? So in addition to whether you can actually do the job with your hard skills, employers are also looking for, can you contribute value to the team in a broader sense? And that can mean a ton of different things. And then the third thing is that you can learn really fast. So especially in software engineering, but in this day and age, in most jobs, if not all, you're always going to need to learn new skills on the job. Even if your role doesn't change or your level doesn't change, you'll probably be expected to have new skills a year from now, different from what you came in with. So employers are trying to figure out, do you have the capacity to learn really fast and acquire those new skills that you don't have today, that are not required for the job today, but that you will definitely need in a year and you can't define them yet. And so I also think it's helpful when you're thinking about, how can I demonstrate my value? How can I be a no-brainer hire? To understand that these three questions are really hard to answer. Can this person do the job? Can this person broadly add value to the team in a way that we've not defined? Can this person learn really fast, i.e. will they be able to do things 12 months from now that we don't know they need to do today and they definitely are not capable of right now? Those are hard questions to answer, and employers spend a lot of time and energy trying to figure out how to evaluate people against these three things. Being a no-brainer hire, part of that is giving employers an easy way to say, yes, this person can do these things. And that doesn't mean that it's something you are asked to do in the interview process. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get a little bit further into the discussion. But we'll revisit these three concepts for all intents and purposes, being a no-brainer hire is demonstrating beyond a shadow of a doubt, and this is hard, that you can do the job, that you can add broader value to the team, and that you can learn really fast. So given that as kind of our guiding principles, our guiding light, how does Flatiron School help prepare students to do this? What kinds of supports do we have in our process to help you achieve those three things and communicate to employers that you are a no-brainer hire? A few things that I'll talk about, and then we'll go into some more detail. The bulk of your experience in the career services part of Flatiron School is going to be this three-pronged job search support system. These three prongs of job search support. There's a curriculum. There's a set of, like an SLA between students and Flatiron School, a service level agreement between students and Flatiron School, communicating what we expect of you and what you can expect of us. That's the career services commitment. And then there's career counseling. In addition to those three things, we actually have a team of folks who were just spending all day talking to employers, evangelizing for the value of a Flatiron grad, for what our grads can do and the kinds of jobs that they've been successful in before and the kinds of values that they can bring to the team. We're going to talk more specifically about these job search supports. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on the career services commitment. But essentially, the career prep curriculum is a set of best practices. We have an entire track on Learn that you'll get access to if you're part of the full stack web development program, where we explain some of the lessons that we've learned over the years about how to run a great job search. Everything from how to write an email to when to follow up to what the heck is networking and how can I get started. And in addition to that, once you graduate, you'll be using the career services commitment as a framework for running your job search. So the commitment is basically just a list of things you should be doing every week that we know make students successful. The career prep curriculum helps you understand how to execute those activities in a way that's intelligent and in line with best practice. And the third prong is career counseling. So every graduate of our full stack web developer program and of our immersive program gets paired up with a career coach, and that person works with you from just before graduation through to job to help you, again, execute the career services commitment and really do it in a way that's in line with the curriculum and with an understanding of best practices and why we're doing the things that we're doing and how that can make you successful. So we'll dive in a little bit into the career services commitment with a focus on what we're trying to prove to employers. And on this slide, the full text of the career services commitment is linked. So you can go take a look at those requirements yourself. It's basically an open source framework for running a good job search. And your coach and the career prep track are there to kind of guide you into executing those in the right way. But if you take a look at those requirements, they'll say things like, make contact with 8 individuals relevant to your job search each week. They'll say things like, continue to code, demonstrate that by having X number of commits on GitHub. Make yourself better, reflect on what you learned, write at least 1 blog post per week. Make sure you're in touch with your coach weekly with an overview of what you've been doing and flag the areas where you need help. All of this is really with those 3 things in mind that we talked about a few slides ago. We're trying to guide you, set up some guardrails to help students prove to employers that they can do the job, that they'll add value to the team, and that they're fast and committed learners. And if you're considering the program or if you're in the program, I really encourage you to take a look at the career services commitment because it's fully transparent and should be quite clear about what those activities are. And you'll have a curriculum and a coach to kind of guide you through how to execute those. But when we think about this at a high level, we're really, again, just trying to prove to employers those three simple things. One of the ways you can do that is actually through your interview process. So I think one of the great falsehoods, something that is not true that many people think is true about job search processes is that it's this set of hurdles that's like linear and binary, and you can run towards them and jump over them, and if you do that successfully enough times, you get a job. That is not true. A lot of interview processes will ask things of you that are not precisely what employers need to make the decision about whether you can do the job, whether you can add value to the team, and whether you can learn fast. And so what we really encourage our students to do is take it upon themselves to make the interview process an opportunity to demonstrate those things no matter what you're asked or not asked in the official kind of series of communication. 3 ways to think about doing that. So kind of in the narrative or journey of your job search, we connected with our career coach, read the career services commitment, doing those things. You've gone through the career prep track and you've read the curriculum and you're using it to run your job search, and now you've gotten an interview because you put in all that great work. Amazing. So now that we're at the interview stage, again, harping on, we want to think of those 3 things. You want to demonstrate, and you've got a great chance to do it now. Can you do the job? Can you add value to the team? And are you a fast and committed learner? How can we achieve that through the interview process? I think there's 3 broad buckets about how to think about that. First and foremost, which we've been trying to do already, put yourself in that hiring manager's shoes, right? Think about those 3 things. Everything you do throughout the interview process should be with the goal of demonstrating 1, 2, or all of those 3 things at the top of this slide. 2, maybe some bullets on that are, you can use the interview as a chance to learn something, right? So this is not only good for the process and good for demonstrating that you've learned something, it's good for you. Even if you don't move on in that process, you've now got more skills in your toolkit and are better able to move further in the next process. And the third one is find a way to contribute something, right? So this is really addressing number 2. Can you add broad value to the team? Maybe a little bit addressing number 1, can you do the job? But someone who has the initiative and puts in the effort to actually contribute something to the company during the interview process is heads and shoulders above most candidates. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about 5 graduates. I think I rogue added a 5th graduate. So 5 unique ideas from Flatiron grads who went above and beyond, proved they were no-brainer hires, and actually got the job. And really creative is Lucas getting his first job out of school, and this is along the lines of kind of open source contribution, which is a big deal, right? You may have encountered in reading or in lectures or discussions with your classmates that if you can contribute to open source, that's like a big credibility boost for you as a software engineer. So what Lucas did was he checked out some of the code in the company's repos, and he actually submitted a change. So that shows 1 and 2, right? It shows that you can do the job, that you have the skills to actually identify where improvement could be made in the code, and that you can add broad value by the team by taking the initiative to make a change that's valuable to the company. So again, most candidates don't do this, not even close. If you can really submit a change that makes a difference for the company in their actual code, that is an enormous boost to your candidacy for that job. Research the company's technology and build something with it. So Kavan wanted to work at Kimi, and he either found their API or some library that they use, and he built something with it. He built a project for that company in their own technology, which I would say touches on 1, 2, and 3, right? Do you have the hard skills to actually do the job? Are you thinking in creative ways about how you can add value to the company and showing that you can learn something like a company's API or library fast enough to build something when you're actually in the interview process? And all the graduates that we're going to talk about got these jobs. So build something with the company's technology, and lots of companies have open APIs that you can kind of work on as a side project to demonstrate, you know, just for your own learning, but also to demonstrate a keen interest in that company and what they're doing. The fourth one is Kristen. And Kristen is now a lead developer at a company in Rochester, New York. And the company was actually a little bit wary of the fact that she was located in New York City and saying she was going to move to Rochester. The company might have had some sort of like complex about Rochester and its level of interestingness. But Kristen identified that was a blocker, and she tackled it head on. Kristen wrote an amazing blog post on her technical blog, having researched fun things to do in Rochester. I think there was an ice skating rink and a science museum, and she wrote a really compelling blog post about why she was so excited to do all of those things upon moving to Rochester, to directly address that company's concern that Rochester wouldn't be able to hold the interest in someone who's a new developer and already located in kind of major metro like New York City. And she got that job, and in fact is now a lead developer there. Another example of a graduate identifying that they're a fast learner and they can do the job was Anna when she was actually applying for her last job. Anna was working on a project while she was in school, and throughout her interview process with this company, she actually made revisions to the project and resubmitted it to address comments that they had made or concerns that they had about her technical abilities, which again, no better way to show that you can do the job and that you can learn quickly than identifying a technical problem or snag or concern that the hiring manager has articulated to you and doing some work, really putting in the effort to demonstrate, not just tell them, but show them that you can in fact do the job and that you can learn really, really fast and are committed to putting in the work to make that happen. And finally, Don. So Don, I believe, used to be a teacher, and he was one of the first graduates from our full stack web developer program on Learn. And Don had a set of great interviews with an agency, with a dev shop, and really wanted to make his candidacy stand out. Really wanted to prove to that company, not just by saying, but again, by showing them that he was extraordinarily committed to their process and super excited about their job. And so what he did was he created a project with the company's branding and related to the company's mission, and actually wrote a blog post explaining it, explaining what he had built and how it was aligned with that company and why he was so excited about it. And again, Don also got that job. So hopefully this has been a good mix of kind of high-level information and some tactical examples and takeaways that help you think about how Flatiron School helps prepare students for the job search, but maybe more importantly, in general, how to be a no-brainer hire and make yourself really interesting and compelling to employers by understanding what it is they're trying to figure out in an interview process and crafting what you do throughout the process to address that. I'll pause now. I think we have a little bit of time for questions. So, yeah.
So first question, somebody wrote in wondering what job prospects for a bootcamp graduate when are compared to a graduate with a BA in computer science.
So what are the job prospects for bootcamp graduate compared to a graduate with a BS in computer science? So the skills that you would learn in school are pretty different than the skills that you would learn in a boot camp. But our program, both the full stack web developer program, online, and the immersive program, are focused on skills that you need to learn to start working as soon as possible. The jobs are actually not that different. So our graduates are going into jobs, and oftentimes they're competing head-to-head with graduates from computer science programs. I think the way that the interview process is structured will often dictate kind of what kinds of skills they're testing for and who will get through. So a giant tech company that's been interviewing the same way for 15 years before boot camps existed, and that only recruits out of computer science programs might have an interview process that's tailored to those graduates, so tailored to graduates of CS programs, and asks questions that are very CS-y. Our graduates might not get through that program, might not get through that interview process. Whereas if you're in an interview process where the questions are focused on how you problem solve or work in a team, or asking you to code live in a text editor or pair, you might have an advantage in that process. A lot of the work is actually very similar, and so one of the things that we encourage our grads to do if they feel like they bombed an interview, whether it's because it's skills they had never encountered before, or because it was a question in a pairing session that they just couldn't figure out, the way to make yourself a no-brainer hire in that scenario is to write down the question, go home, figure it out, code up an answer, write a blog post about your answer, and send it to the hiring manager. If you do those things, I will say with 99.9% confidence, there's no job that's not available, right? And if you study enough and kind of go through enough reps of that, the job opportunities are, they're there. That said, right, certain processes will ask more specifically for certain skills, like in any job interview process. And again, it's not so much that there are jobs that are or aren't available to bootcamp grads. I think it's more, is the interview process one where you kind of make a connection with the company and vice versa? And I think that's really about specific skills, personality, and fit with the team and the product.
Great. Another good question we got was, so if part of the career services commitment is blogging, what should candidates expect to be blogging about?
I love this question. What should people expect to be blogging about? So part of the reason that we require students to blog is that it's twofold. One, it's a great way to build up your technical online presence and have a lot of collateral. We talk a lot about job search collateral. So have collateral around the internet that demonstrates that you are technical, that you are thoughtful, that you can basically do those three things, right? That you can do the job, that you can add broader value by being a person who is thoughtful and articulate about what you're learning, and that you can learn fast, that you're learning new things all the time and kind of committing them to paper and actually putting them out there for the good of the community in case someone else has that question. So one of the reasons is to build your online presence as a technologist. But the other reason is it's actually a really good way to cement your learning. So encountering a problem, thinking about it to the point where you can put pen to paper and explain it, especially in a way that someone else who has that problem might understand and be able to use as a resource, is a really effective way to cement a new concept or skill. So to the question of what should you be blogging about, whatever you're struggling with. We've seen students blog about things as simple as like how to figure out how many items are in an array, if that's like something that just didn't click for them at first. And we've seen students kind of, as they progress through the curriculum, blog about much more complicated things, or even about, as Kristen did, like thoughts on a particular situation that they're in, or concepts that they're struggling with on this journey, maybe not specifically technical. It's up to students to decide what they blog about. And one of the great things about the Flatiron School community is you can kind of pop into Slack at any time and ask your classmates what they're doing. This is something that I know a lot of folks get stuck on, and so don't be afraid to rely on the community of instructors, coaches, or fellow students and grads to ask what they did when they were in a similar spot.
So further to the sort of post-grad situation, what is the relationship between a career coach and a graduate look like? What is how often do they talk? How involved are they?
Great question. What does the relationship between a career coach and a grad look like? So our career coaching program starts around 3/4 of the way through the course. We have a set of triggers that will kind of tell us that you're ready for a career coach. And after that happens, you get paired up with a coach. And student and coach work through a series of fairly structured activities together to get your job search collateral ready. So that's building a technical resume, polishing up your LinkedIn, figuring out how to talk about you as a developer and how to discuss your journey. We call that your 30-second elevator pitch. You'll do a formal mock interview, both with your coach for kind of the HR cultural side of an interview, and with someone technical for a technical round of practice before you kind of go into the market. There's a whole series of things that you'll discuss with your coach and kind of build with your coach before you graduate and officially start your job search. After graduation and after you officially start your job search, the relationship looks a lot more like strategy and tips and tricks and pipeline review, kind of identifying, are we doing all the things required in the career services commitment? Are we seeing success from those? Are we doing them with best practices in mind, as is kind of outlined in our curriculum? And do we have any questions? I mean, this is a very human process, so part of the reason that everyone has a coach is just like, sometimes you need someone to bounce ideas off of. Something weird happens and you don't know how to deal with it, or you've never seen it before, there's no one in your network that's gone through this process, and your coach is there just for those discussions. Students and coaches, after the job search begins, connect about once a week, at a very minimum once every other week, on the process and how it's going. And we'll provide a tool for you to track your job search in so that you and your coach can be on the same page about what's been going on, what there is to discuss, and where he or she can provide support and kind of help guide you in the right direction or help you decipher part of this odd waltz that is the job search and decide or figure out what to do next. I could talk forever on this. I'll just say maybe like one or two more things. One of the things that is really valuable, I think, about the coaching program is having a second set of eyes to identify if what you're doing is not working, where might the breaks be? So it's very easy in your code to figure out if it's not running, if there's a bug, right? You can like read the error messages. A lot of times in the job search, it feels a little bit like a black hole because you might not be getting responses from companies, you might not be getting feedback on your interviews, and the combination of consistently putting in the work every week, tracking what you're doing so you have a good record of what's working and what's not, and being able to rely on your coach for guidance and brainstorming about what we can do better, really can help you kind of get out of a rut or get unstuck or figure out how to move forward. So I guess the short answer is, you'll connect with your coach as often as needed and doesn't interfere with your learning until graduation to get all your collateral ready. After graduation, you'll connect about once a week, no less than every other week. So you can kind of get that guidance and have those discussions and have a really productive dialogue with someone who's done this a bunch about how you can move forward in your search.
Well, there's just a follow-up question. Is all of the career coaching online?
Is all of the career coaching online? So I think that question means, does career coaching happen in person or over the internet? Most of it happens over the internet. If you happen to be located in the same city as your coach, then you can certainly meet up in person. Our coaches are located all over the country. So you might be paired with a coach who is in your city. You might not be paired with a coach who's in your city, in which case coaching will happen over Skype or over Hangout. Office hours that I had just mentioned are a live conversation, but there's really 3 ways to get in touch with your coach. Through office hours, and that's usually over Skype or Hangout, maybe in person if you and your coach happen to be located in the same place. Email, so coaches are available via email, and on Slack. So coaches will be, just like you guys, on Slack certain times, not on Slack other times, but all of our coaches have access to the student Slack channels, and so you'll be able to reach them there as well.
So a question we get every time we have a webinar pretty much is, what is your advice for somebody who's looking to start a career in tech and maybe over the age of 30, or, isn't what people would consider a millennial or natural?
I will just start with the disclosure that I am over the age of 30, and I think 30 is very young. But I think I get the question is the paradigm, the thought, the stereotype of a tech person, of a developer, is like a young dude maybe who's been doing this since they were 2 and, can now drink and also work in the world. A lot of our employers, I was just listening to a talk today where someone was saying part of the reason that he likes hiring Flatiron grads is because they have all this valuable past experience. His 2 points were valuable past experience and communication skills. So this person who's hired about a dozen grads out of the school was saying, hey, I actually really value Flatiron grads as opposed to address one of those previous questions, maybe someone directly out of a CS program at a traditional university, because they have previous experience that can give them like real market knowledge about our product, or just working knowledge about how teams work together and how to communicate in a company, and how to meet goals and set deadlines and be on time and stuff like that. And their experience, likely working in other companies, gives them better communication skills so that stuff can get done faster. So there's a learning curve with a new grad who's coming right out of school into their first job. Big life change. That person has often not encountered kind of the structures of the working world before. And it takes some doing to get ramped up on just how to work. Graduates who come out of the school and have had significant life, work, or both experience will ramp up much faster generally, and employers really value that. So I think one of the things that we actually encourage all of our grads to emphasize when they're going out on the job search, the vast majority of our grads have at least a few years of work experience under their belt before they come here, is that past experience, and is how that's a differentiator for you versus other candidates who might be coming straight out of school. All things being equal, would you rather have an entry-level employee who's never worked before or an entry-level employee who's got 10 years of work experience and understands how to set goals, communicate across teams, resolve issues, and be flexible with what they need to be accomplishing in the workplace? I think one of the ways to position yourself, and you'll work with your coach if this is the case for you and you're in the program, as a graduate with more experience, is really leaning into that experience and explaining the reasons that you think that will make you a great employee. Yeah, that's it, man.
Sort of going off of things that do make you a no-brainer hire. Somebody who is, going into the tech scene without BS and CS, do you think that people should focus on getting experience with a ton of different languages, or focus on learning one or two really well?
That's a good question, and I'm actually probably not the best person to answer this, but my default answer to questions like this of like, what should I focus on outside the curriculum? Let's say I've already graduated, I'm in my job search period. My answer is always focus on stuff that really captivates you, so you'll go deep and you'll get excited and what you're really aiming for, from my perspective, is to come out of whatever the side projects or studying you're doing are, and into an interview with a narrative and a discussion of your work since, or in school, but also since graduation, that makes you light up. So if that's like going deep on React, and you're going to like build 3 apps in React after you graduate, friggin' great. I bet if the company you interview with is using Python, but you just light up about React and you are talking about all the details of it and the bugs, and you submitted a pull request to the React, to React itself, and you built 3 projects and you're improving one. As a hiring manager, that's what you want to see, right? You don't necessarily want to see someone who just learns how to iterate over an array. That's a thing, I don't know. It might be going beyond my depth here. You don't want to see someone who just learns basic syntax in Python but can't really do anything. You want to see someone who demonstrates that they not only have the skills to do the job, but are a committed and fast learner and are really convincing you that that's the case. So again, probably a better question for students and grads in the program, or some technical folks who've worked with our grads more closely in that way. But I would say just find something that makes you light up and work on that.
So given that we have sort of 3 levels of the online web developer program, we have our in-person course, we have our online course, and we have the community powered camp. How do you think prospective students' expectations of a job guarantee or a job search should differ across those 3 levels?
So I would think of those 3 different programs as, they're all the same curriculum, but I would think of them as increasing levels of commitment. Community Powered Bootcamp is all of the curriculum and content that we use in all of our other programs, same exact curriculum, without the job offer guarantee, without career services support, without instructional support, and without assessment. So that's for an extraordinarily independent learner, or someone who's trying to dip their toe in and decide if it would be a good idea to commit more heavily to one of those other programs, but hasn't gotten quite enough from our free content and wants to go a little bit further before they think about taking the plunge. The online web developer program and the immersive program are essentially structured the same with regards to career services. So what we ask of students is that you follow the commitment, you're communicative and transparent with your coach, you're positive and excited and enthusiastic, and you go all in on the career services program the same way that you did with your learning. There's really no difference between those 2 programs, career services wise, and the job offer guarantee applies to both. The way that I usually think about the differences between the programs, kind of from an instructional perspective and a logistics perspective, is the online web developer program is a lot more flexible. It allows you to be located anywhere. It allows you to go at your own pace and do the work whatever hours of the day make sense to you. And so we see a lot of students in that program who have other commitments or can't be in New York, or who are keeping their job and kind of burning the candle at both ends for a little while, but don't have the option of kind of quitting their job and being in New York and being here full time for 4 months. So I think there's some logistical differences, but the way that students work with their coach through the full stack web developer program online and through the immersive are pretty much the same.
Another good question that I thought we got in was, what's your advice to someone who gets extremely anxious and nervous about interviews, and how do you steel yourself for getting questions that you're not prepared for?
You take a lot of questions that you're not prepared for. I think the best way to stop being anxious about anything, this is perhaps a result of my cognitive behavioral therapist parents, but is to just do it a lot, right? Just like do the thing that scares you a lot of times. You will inevitably get less scared of it because you'll figure out that nothing terrible happens because of that thing. there's a few ways to think about this, and when we connect as a coaching team, I've heard our coaches talk about this in a lot of really interesting, and I think, effective ways. One of those is to choose a viewpoint for the situation. So let's say you have an interview and you are just freaking terrified of interviews. My first suggestion, of course, would be to practice technical problems, practice with your cat, practice, talking out loud in the mirror, in the shower, and just saying your 30-second elevator pitch. It'll make you much less afraid if you feel prepared. But the second thing is choose a different viewpoint. You can think about that as a terrifying situation where an experienced developer will judge me. But you can also choose to think about that as an interesting thing to do on a Tuesday afternoon that I wouldn't normally have the opportunity to do. You can think about that as a chance to discuss my code with someone much more experienced than me. You can think about it as an opportunity to learn about the inner workings of a company that I don't know much about. And this is maybe a little bit off topic and a little bit kind of deeper into what we would actually do when coaching, but it's within your power, just like it is when you're struggling with a bug, to choose the way that you're looking at that problem. And you can decide to choose a viewpoint that is positive and enthusiastic and excited, and you can choose to eschew the viewpoint that you are terrified and you're going to fail.
Okay, so I think one last question, sort of an interesting one. So Rombom is wanting to stay at their current employer, but wants to transition to a role as a software developer. So if they were in an online program, how would our career services cater to that?
Yeah, so our career services process, the process that I've talked about, the process that the 5 graduates that I mentioned went through, assumes a couple of things about your job search. It assumes that you're looking for junior or entry level, your first dev job, and it assumes that you really want that job and you want it pretty fast. And so we're going to put you, and for the vast majority of our graduates, that is the case. And so we're going to put you through a set of experiences that prepare you to go out into the market and get a junior dev job, interview for a junior dev job, and assume that you're excited about that process and that's what you want to do. We have a significant minority of students for whom that's not the case. Either they're entrepreneurs, or they're staying at their current company, or they're just, and want to transition, or they're just adding another skill to their toolkit, or, they have been a developer forever and are now freelancing and, want to offer Ruby and JavaScript services where they had previously only done PHP. Right? There's a wide variety of scenarios where students aren't precisely interested in that outcome. And actually, one of the first conversations you'll have with your career coach is centered around a survey that asks about your goals, and that kind of lives on your student profile for our team, and a subsequent discussion about those answers. And, we find that a bunch of students will, be aiming for slightly different things than the outcomes that our process is built to support. And that's great. We'll just do a different process for you. So in this particular scenario where I think this question asker was interested in staying at their existing company, but leveling up and then transitioning laterally to a role as software engineer, that's awesome. That sounds like a super fun scenario to coach. So your coach would work with you through, what the situation is at your company, how far you've looked into this. I imagine some of the first questions he or she might ask you are, does your company know that you're doing this program? Have you worked with the developers before? Do you know any of the developers on the team? Is your company hiring for developers? What kinds of things does your company look for in developers? Is there a way to figure that out in like a casual setting since you're already in the company? Can you have coffee with the CTO? Can you string up a relationship? Do you have a relationship? So I think maybe the heart of this question is kind of, is your coaching individualized or is it like very cookie cutter? And it's individualized, right? The whole point of having a coach who is your coach, for one-on-one relationship, is to be able to meet students where they are and help them with the goals that they have. That said, if you're looking for your first developer job and you're committed to doing that pretty fast, like, we will hold you to doing the set of things that we know work for that outcome. But again, the reason that your coach is there and the reason that we ask for you guys to meet so frequently is so that we can provide support that's individualized and that's for you and where you are and for your goals. I'm going to go to the next slide now. Oh, if you want to learn more, yes, we have an ebook about a lot of the things that I've talked about, reviewing a lot of these concepts and kind of expanding on a lot of this content, and that's at nobrainertechhire.com. And if you want to download our outcomes reports that I referred to in the first couple of slides, you can head to outcomes.flatironschool.com and get them there. We will email you guys this evening with some information about scholarship opportunities, and I hope you guys got something valuable out of this. It was fantastic to be with you this afternoon.